Hello, hello, friends. Happy Saturday. It is Saturday at Happy Paper People, and we are ready for a laugh and craft with our friends. I'm Marianne from Happy Paper People. It's good to see everyone. We want to welcome all of our new subscribers. We have a lot of new subscribers recently. We are so glad that you're here, and we invite you to jump right into chat and say hello. We love to say hello to the new subscribers, so don't be shy. Please jump right in and say hello so we can get to know you. And with me today, I have Dawn Marie.
Hi, everyone.
And Jen.
Hey, everyone.
See the hands waving while they're gathering their stuff together. So we already have in chat Glennis. Good morning. Good afternoon, Glennis. It is noon. It is 12 noon. Whoop, whoop. Uh-oh, my YouTube is not doing well. It is buffering. Wow. Hi, Sarah. Good to see you. Good afternoon to you. Hello, Christy. Good to see you. Anybody else who's jumping in, come on into chat so we can say hello. But today we're going to play with watercolor and art journal. So if you want to grab an art journal, any kind, doesn't matter. It doesn't even have to be watercolor paper. I've done some of these things just in my art journals that are not watercolor paper. Neither of these are watercolor paper. This is, and if you want to just grab some paper on the side that you add to a journal or don't, that's okay too. Sometimes it's fun to keep these almost like swatches in a file or on a ring where you see different techniques that you have done that reminds you, gives you ideas, things like that. So then we are using watercolor. So if you have a watercolor palette, I've got a little one there. It's a travel one. I've got a couple of, these are not expensive, just watercolor palettes. It doesn't need to be expensive watercolor for today. If you have, these are Jane Davenport Aqua Pastels. So it's basically a watercolor in a stick. If you don't have any watercolor palette, you could use your Distress ink refillers or any ink refillers. Make sure it's water-based for sure. You
can also use their pads if they smush the pad on a glass or thing and then add water to it.
You could also use your Distress pads. You don't have to have the re-inker. So you could use the Distress pads for that. So we want you to be able to do this, to participate and not feel like you have to have watercolor, because you do not. And I'll use all of them so that, you know, if you feel like, well, we're just saying that, it's not really true. In fact, I was doing some things the last couple of days and I was using the re-inkers as my watercolor. So we often use the pads. And for what we're starting with, I would start with the regular ink pads, not the oxides. So that is the black one. The silver one is your oxide. So if it's black, it is a regular ink pad. So start with that. So what I'd like to do, I'm kind of just introducing here and kind of waiting to see if we have others jump in that are going to play with us so that they can get in from the beginning. You'll probably want a jar of water. You'll want to grab a brush or two, any brush. Pick your favorite brush or just any brush you like, honestly. I've got a handful of them sitting here next to me. I don't know which one I'll use. Any of them. Any of them will work for these kinds of things. It isn't a specific technique that requires a specific brush.
You might also want a paper towel or a cloth.
You might want to have some baby wipes handy if you've got those nearby for your fingers. Your art towel, this is a great time. I've got one that's really clean. It was a new one, and then it was laundered. So got a pretty clean one there that I can get all messy. Nice art towel there. You'll want a surface that's not going to get ruined with paint. I'm using my glass mat, but then I decided to put some baking mats on it so you won't get that glare off of the glass mat, which I don't care for, honestly. You can mix right on your glass mat Like if you're using your watercolor not watercolor, your distress pads, you can put them right down on the glass mat and then just add some water either with your brush or just spritz it like that. You could use a palette or a ceramic plate or a plastic plate or a piece of, I just took out the trash last night from all the things I took off of paper at the sale, but any of those big pieces of cellophane are perfect. I was thinking after I took it out that I should have kept a few of those because on that cellophane, you can just put a drop or some of your ink pad and spritz it with water, and it makes a perfect palette. When you're done, just throw it away after you've mopped up all the ink, of course. So lots of different ways to do things there. So Glennis, Sarah, Christy, I'm going to assume that all three of you are going to play with us today because you're usually three that jump right in. Acetate will work. Yep, if you have a sheet of acetate off of some packaging, that will work. Oh, Christy, did you just miss everything I said?
I'm going to close my window because the wind chimes.
Okay. Were you in here, Christy, and got pulled away, and then you just came back? I just 5 minutes telling you everything we're going to do. That is so funny. Already, Glennis is ready to work with us. Sarah, are you going to play along with us today? I think maybe I'll just start in this one. Sarah, smile. Are you going to play along with us today? Christy, if you have an art journal or some heavy duty paper or watercolor paper, it doesn't even matter. Some watercolors, or we went through all the different things that you could use for watercolors like ink pads, inks, any watercolors. I'm stopping at short of using the water-based crayons and things like that because they're not truly watercolor. They are water-based. So they are activated with water, but they do give you a different texture. That's why I'm stopping short of those and really just going to things that are actually watercolor. Telling us yes, right, Christy, you are right. I was doing that to give you time to gather a couple things if you need to. We are going to do, and Sarah's ready to go, good. We are going to do a couple of exercises. If you have ever a time, which I think everybody does, when your creative stuff must have got bent, where your creative energy is low, you want to create, you don't really know what to do because your creative energy is low, you're not feeling very creative. We're going to do a couple of exercises that can help get you through that and help you come out having created something really cool without really having to think very hard about it. And we're also going to, like the second one, and then if we have time to get to a third one, show how you can do those without really having to think about it, but then they can also become fantastic bases to build on to make a really cool art journal page. So Christy, you may go to town if you want anytime. So, all right. So first thing I'm going to do is get my watercolor palette wet. Choose 3 colors for this first one. Choose 3 colors that you like together. Usually I'll just grab my sprayer and spray the whole palette. I know I'm only going to use 3 colors right now, so I'm just going to get these 3 colors, dropping some drops into the 3 colors there. But choose 3 colors that you like together. Choose any brush of your choice. We're going to leave the paper dry, even though I dripped water on it.
You just...
What?
I thought you said you were going to get your paper wet.
Oh, no. Sorry. Get your watercolor palette. I'm sorry. That's also okay. A palette. That is also a palette. You are right. Get your watercolors wet so that they will be activated. Often I'll just spray them with this. I just dropped some water straight onto the 3 colors. So choose 3 colors. You'll want to have your paper towel or your art towel close by. Choose 3 colors that you like together, and we'll get some color. What we're going to do first here is just draw basically some lines. It's a fat line, but it's just a line. We're going to wash the brush, dry it up, go to the second color, and do the second color right next to it. I dropped a lot of water in these. There's a lot of water. Might take it a bit to be able to dry. And we're going to do the second color right next to it. Wash your brush. Go to your third color. Anytime you need to, spray or drop some more water onto your watercolor paints. Make a third line. It doesn't matter what shape brush you're using. Anything that you like. I hope you like this, Christy. I'm going to need to get a little more water in there now. So now I'm going back and repeating in the same order. Get that blue. I like that blue. It's pretty. I see that it got a little bit of that fuchsia on it, and I could see just a hair of purple in there, which is kind of cool. Yeah, these are really wet, so I might have to dry them with the dryer instead of letting them dry. And you'll, after you do it, you can say, okay, I'd like to do that again, make them not so wet, or make them wetter so you get different intensity of color. Because depending on how much water, I'm going to keep going in the same order, but that makes the first one on the second row a different color because I got 5 across. I know it's hard to chat while you're doing, so we'll pause now and then so you guys can chat and catch us up on how you're doing. So I'm just repeating the same 3 colors in the same order, and I'll end up here with three rows. There's enough for a 3rd row, but not a 4th. And mine is kind of a, I thought I was grabbing the lighter one, but it looks like I went to the darker, a darker fuchsia, almost fuchsia maroon. I thought I was grabbing the brighter one. And a pretty blue and a purple. What colors are you using, DM?
Pink, purple, and green.
Ooh, pretty.
That's funny. Those are the same colors I was doing, only I have to make my colors.
Really? I was just going to ask Jen, what colors are you using? Pink, purple, and green?
Yeah, like a magenta. And
yeah.
But I have to mix to make them.
That's okay. You know, if you guys start with red, yellow, and blue, you'd be able to mix any color you want in the rainbow. I am not a watercolor artist, so I assume that most of you watching are not as well. And so these are kind of cool and easy techniques that help us in general with our arting, our creative energy. And you don't have to be a watercolor artist to enjoy playing with them. I would like to learn more about watercolors and how to use them. I've been playing with them a lot lately, and I'm really enjoying them. I never really had interest in them before. And so I'm not sure about why right now. But, you know, just like one time we like to do one thing, and now we like to junk journal, and another time we'll like to do something else. You know, you guys know me and how we are on this channel. We want to try it all. We want to try everything. So there's nothing, no art that we will just poo-poo. We will try it all. Because isn't that, you know, how the creative mind works? You just want to try everything. So I've really been fascinated with watercolors lately, and I've been playing with them in different forms and just literally playing. And I'm really enjoying it. Now this is much more deep cranberry red. Thought I was grabbing the fuchsia, but I didn't. But I still like it. It's very pretty. Okay, let's catch up on... Hey, KK. We are playing with watercolors in Art Journal. Teal, purple, and silver. Wow, dark teal, purple, and silver. That sounds like a gorgeous combination, Sarah. Can't wait to see that one. Can't wait to see that one. All right, I have room for one more strip. KK, we are playing with watercolors in art journals. And this first one is a technique to do when you are wanting to create, but you're feeling low creative energy. And you don't really have to think too hard about it. And I'm not worried about every one of those strips being exactly the same size or shape.
I changed to actual watercolor.
Ooh, look how much darker.
Look at the difference between these.
What were you using at the beginning?
I was using the Jane Davenport Aqua Pastels.
Okay, so they're very pastel-y.
To my Jane Davenport actual
watercolors themselves. Okay, very cool. Can't wait to see the teal, purple, and silver. Glennis, what are you using? I'm going to say yellow, orange, maybe even brown, and that would be okay. That'd be a nice color. The thing is, just pick 3 colors that you like together, or that you think will look pretty together. Doesn't even matter. You can let it dry or make it dry. In the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and make it dry. I do have a few little puddles here and there, and I did not bring in my paper towels. My roll was empty. I need a new roll. I do have some puddles. I'm going to go ahead and mop up a couple of them because it's just at the very end. I'll use a Kleenex because I didn't bring the paper towels in. I was trying to get into a very small spot there. It's already dry. I won't worry about it. That will be great. I just want these to go ahead and dry. Yellow and 2 greens. Nice. That sounds like a good combination as well. We want these to dry as much as possible because then we will take either a white Posca pen or a white gel pen, or you could use a silver metallic pen. You could use a gold metallic too if you wanted. Something that is a fine point. Let's see if they're dry enough that I can write on them and they're not going to gunk up because they're just still very wet. And we're going to doodle, but don't worry, you don't have to think about what to doodle. Some of you, I know that freaks you out. I don't know what to doodle. I don't know how to doodle. I typically use a white gel pen. Where did I put them? I know I brought them back in. But I think I might use a white Posca pen because it might be a little bit darker for you to see. Hot pink, cobalt blue, and bright green. Love it.
That's awesome.
Love it. See, you're on that pink and green thing too, and Glennis is using green. All you guys were getting similar combinations, except me and Sarah. We're on those dark.
That's because I'd have to make up orange out of my palette.
Yeah.
I wanted to.
Well, we get to
close to spring.
So that's true. Well, I guess you're all feeling springy. I'm going to use the white Posca pen, thinking that it might be a little darker for you to see. And I just carried my, oh, maybe it's in my pocket. I know I just carried my white gel pens in here. Yep, they're in my pocket. Okay.
There's a hole in your pocket.
Love these Jelly Roll white pens. I've always had a hard time finding a white gel pen that actually works and continues to work. And DM is the one that turned me onto these. They're called Jelly Roll 08 would be the size. I do have them in the shop. I don't remember how much they are, but it seems to me that they were like $1.50, something ridiculously low. So
a lot cheaper than you get them in the stores.
Exactly. Yeah, they were. So let's see. One of them I used and the paint wasn't dry. And so I know I gunked up the end, which I need to clean off. Yeah, which is why I really like the paint to be dry so it doesn't gunk up your pen. Okay, so what we're going to do If you already have some doodles in mind because you like to doodle, if you can pick your own. If you don't, I will give you 3. Basically going to pick 3 doodles. Now my white pen is a paint pen, so it's thicker. What should I do with that? This is a paint pen too, but it's not super thick. It is the pointy. Is yours really thick, Christy? It's not the pointy end? Do you have a silver or a gold that is pointy? Something that is a little thinner tip. We're going to go in here and we're going to doodle a pattern. Like the very first color here, I'm just going to make bubbles. The bubbles can be any size, some larger, some smaller. And I'm just making bubbles. Bubbles are round circles. So in other words, I'm just drawing circles in this one. Any size, large ones next to small ones, lots of bubbles, fill it up with bubbles.
Oh, okay.
They can be touching. They can be half bubbles on the edge that didn't quite make it in, got cut off. Bubbles are really pretty with that color coming in from behind them. And if my paint isn't completely dry, then it starts to absorb the white. That's when I know that my paint's not completely dry. Okay, so there is bubbles in the first color. Now we're going to go to the second one, and we're going to choose a different pattern. And I will make this one be almost like, see, in the center here, I'm going to do almost like it's the center of a flower with the petals, and then just do a very simple petals around it. There's 3, and then just keep going out from there with each petal kind of going over the open space between the 2 in front of it. Does that make sense? This doesn't take long, so I'll pick it up and show you if that didn't make any sense. The nice thing about this is petals aren't perfect. Petals are all kinds of squiggly. So when you draw this, you don't have to be perfect or even want to be perfect. If you're not a steady hand like me, you don't have to worry about being a steady hand. You don't want a steady hand. Okay.
Hi, Susan.
Hey, Sue. Good to see you. Okay, so there, you see I started with that one, which was just a squiggly circle, and then just make kind of a petal. I mean, it's a very loose petal shape, but you see we have a nice doodle in there just using a loose petal shape. All right, and then on the purple, the third one, I'm going to do something with lines because we've got circles here and we've got something that is on kind of on the round side here. So this one, I could do lines straight up and down. I could do diagonal lines. I think I'll do diagonal lines, just plain and simple lines. Now you're starting to see how when you really, you want to create, your creative energy is low and you just can't think of what to do. You also don't have the energy to go, you know, dig up a bunch of stuff and do a great big project. How you can sit down and do this, and you can use multiple mediums or media. So there you see the bubbles, the loose petal pattern, and the lines. So now just continue with all of them, and every one that is this color, your first color, you're going to do with bubbles. Every one that is this color, you're going to do with the loose petal. So I have 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. How do I end up with 6? Yeah, I've got like 5 or 6 of each one. So you just continue like that. So you've got 3 patterns just to repeat, and it looks cool now. But then when you get those 3 patterns all the way and see that repetition with the color popping through, and when you use a white gel pen or a white paint pen or a silver, I think silver would be even give you that pop better than gold, but you could use a gold. It makes that color pop right through. And what I love is using the watercolor paint that it's not all the same. Like look on this purple one. You can see it's dark up here. It's really light over here where there was less paint on the brush. Same thing here. I've got that splotch that collected at the bottom. So it'll be dark down there and lighter in the middle. I think that really adds to the cool look that you have. And if you're thinking, oh, I can't even do those little stripes straight, it doesn't matter. I purposefully did not make them perfect rectangles. So they have odd edges, odd shapes. And I purposefully didn't worry about where the ink collected inside because it gives that dark and light difference, which is what comes through really cool. Look at the difference in this one and this one. This one had a lot more pigment on it and it's much darker. I could get a couple more bubbles in there too. But this one was a lot lighter pigment. Even though they're the same color, they really do look different. And even the shape will make them look different. So it's just, when you finish, it's really visually stunning, even though you're thinking, I did such a simple technique. It's really quite visually stunning. And if it's your art journal page, you just leave it there. But if you happen to do it on a piece of paper, or even, I guess if you wanted to cut out your art journal page, but you could see how you could even cut out these little sections and use them in other art. They would be cool. I just like the feeling, like this one looks like I've got flower petals, and not being a watercolor or oil painting or something, you know, a painting artist. That's something that I don't really know how to do and doesn't come naturally. And so to feel like I've been able to get these petals is cool. That is energizing on a low creative day. I feel like I created something that I couldn't normally or wouldn't normally create. Can't wait to see the ones you guys are doing. Okay, so now I'm to my third one. That's the purple one, and that is the stripe one. You can do the stripes as close together or far apart as you want. I would recommend that they're at least far apart enough to see the color through, because that is what gives you that cool contrast. See how the whole page is starting to come along as you do this. Bring my phone close by so when you guys get them done in text. All right. Yeah, we all have those days where you just don't have the energy to think up a project, or even to do what you normally do, or you don't have the energy to pick up a project that you're in the middle of and work on it, but you want to do something. I really like being creative in some manner every day, even if it's just a few minutes. And something like this, easy to do, doesn't take a lot of energy, doesn't take a lot of brain power. In fact, like no brain power. It's been a busy week for me, and it's Saturday, and I'm a little low creative energy right now. I really want to create, have this time and set aside with you guys. But making my creative brain think about some things is too much work right now. It just wants to relax and create. And this is really good, relaxing and creating. What are you guys thinking about it, DM and Jen?
Oh, I like it, but I'm changing up my doodles every single time. So
you're not doing a 3 repeat. You're doing a different doodle in each one, which you also can do. And DM is a doodler. She's a professional doodler. So if you're not, and you're like, but I can't think of a different doodle for every single one of them, that there is exactly the brain power I'm talking about. And that's the purpose for just picking 3. You can always do circles and stripes and then anything else.
Yeah.
You do pluses, you know, crosses, X's, any other shape. You know, you could do squares, circles, squares, and straight lines. You can always get just some basics there. So if you're not a big doodler, DM doodles a lot and loves it and is very good at it.
Actually, Christy, I do tend to hold my breath if I'm doing something that I have to concentrate on. I do tend to hold my breath. Yep.
Are you holding your breath on this?
Well, she asked when you're drawing, and if like
so when you're doodling,
when I'm doodling, not necessarily, but if I'm actually trying to concentrate and draw something specific, that's when I hold my breath.
Interesting. Although I think I do as well.
It's sort of like a little until it's done.
Yeah.
And then you let go.
That is funny. Yeah. So for DM to think of a different doodle to put in every one is no big deal, because she's got lots of doodles in her head, in her repertoire, because she doodles all the time. If you're not a regular doodler, though, that's going to take a lot of brain power, and you don't want to exert a lot of brain power. Just pick three, any three shapes, any three, straight lines is awesome. The last one I did like this, I did the straight lines up and down. And so this one I'm doing them diagonally just to change it up a bit. They're still straight lines, though, You could even start in the center, do one circle in the center, and do straight lines out from the center. They're still straight lines. Just let your brain relax and tell it just draw some straight lines. A lot of people ask, what do you do when you get in one of those funks, creative funks, where you just can't think of things to do, brain isn't, completely function, your time and attention has been spread elsewhere, and there's not a lot of energy left for this. This is one of those things. I think exercises that are repetitive, that you don't have to think very much about, are great for those moments. Jen, how are you feeling about it?
Oh, she's got herself muted.
Yep.
Sorry. I don't have a working gel pen, so I just took a fine line brush.
Oh, cool.
And watered down gesso to make the marks.
Well, that works. See, you don't, all you need is 3 colors and white. So however you can get those. Worst case, if she had to, well, she could take the gesso and add color to it for the 3 colors, but you've all got ink pads of any brand. Doesn't matter. You've all got ink pads. So to just squish the ink down, use some water on that, and use some color, you'll never be without the ability to do that. Oh, I see why. Because I started with the wrong one down here. That's why I ended up with one more of these and one less of the other. But yeah, so she wants to do the exercise. Doesn't have a gel pen that's working right now. Doesn't have Poscas. Totally fine. Just grab a thin paintbrush. You could even grab a toothpick and just do simple marks that, like dots. Grab something you could use as a mark making tool that has a really fine end or small end.
See if they work now.
So how's it coming along, Christy, Glennis, and Sarah? Sue, are you creating along with us today? Are you doing the watercolor exercises? All right. Now I got another petal. I'm loving how this petal design is looking. It does look like a flower that you got close to and only have that, very center part.
It's like we're designing our own washi tape.
Exactly. or our own wallpaper, or yeah, because these are thin, not
Yeah,
super
because they
thin,
look
but
like
small
pieces of
strips.
pieces.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you think how you could do this on any paper, and it doesn't have to be watercolor paper now. You see why, because you can just you don't have to go so heavy on the water that it's going to saturate the paper. But you could then cut them up and use them as stickers or labels as you're layering on top as backing.
If you are using a paintbrush and you struggle with making a circle, break it into 2 halves.
Yes.
That will help.
I can't do a circle with a paintbrush and keep it even. Yeah, do 1/2 and then the other half, bring them together. Christy's almost done. Sarah's doing so-so. So Glynis couldn't see my hand when I was doing the petals. So I have one more of the petal. I can bring it up close if you wanted to see it, Glynis. All I did in the center was make an irregular shape that is purposely not smooth, and then started doing petals like this outside of it. There's one. I'll do 3 on the first one, and I want them to be squiggly. And then as I go out from there, it's however many I need, because that will come behind it. Then that will cross over where they meet. Another one will come behind it. That will cross over. So it's just layers and layers of flower petals. And as I said, it's a very loose, easy flower petal design. I am not a paint or draw artist, so the things that I teach you in that will not be, what are they? Techniques that fine artists use. I'm just an artist that loves to try everything. Okay, so I've got.
So one of the things, if you're having trouble thinking of a doodle to draw, if you take a letter, for instance, the letter V, and just change it and put it in a different, make it big, make it small.
Yes.
You'll see that it makes really interesting shapes.
Yes, you know what? I did one journal page. I don't remember which journal it was in. That was just all letters. I'll have to pull that out one time, but I didn't know. I really was brain drain and just dead, but I really wanted to be creative and not just vegetate. And so I took the marker and I started writing the alphabet. And so wrote the A here, and it was one size. And then I turned it over and I wrote the B here, and it was a different size. And the C and the D. And I made some uppercase and some lowercase, or I did an uppercase and a lowercase of each one. And different sizes, pointing different ways. And then I looked at this one and went, okay, I could make the, whatever it is, the L off of the stem of that one. So I put them really close together. And it's a very cool looking art piece. DM's right. That was a great suggestion. Thank you.
I'm doing A's right here.
Awesome. So yeah, if you can't think of it, always go to circles, and circles and lines are wonderful in mark making. And then if you need something else, a letter of the alphabet is always great. Different sizes, different fonts if you want. Same if you want. Some can be uppercase, some can be lowercase. If you want the continuity in something like this, where it's all the same thing, then just do, if you do a V, you know, there V is kind of, that's an awkward one for me to explain. If it's like a, and I don't know, whatever the letter, you could do them all uppercase or all lowercase. For a lot of them, it's just the size, although some of them do look different. But if you don't want the continuity, you just want the mark making, then change it up. Do some uppercase, some lowercase.
Sorry, that's my dog talking to the cat.
Is that Penelope?
Yeah, she's
Penelope.
She's harassing the cat because she knows I'm busy.
Yeah, that's funny. Penelope. Hello. Okay.
She's looking for you.
Oh, cute. I'm right here, Penelope. Can't you see me? All right. So mine is completed.
She's on TV.
There. Glynis is done. Christy's almost done. Let's see.
I also used a huge piece of paper, so I've got a lot on.
Yeah. Glynis has sent a photo of hers. Oh, very cool. Very cool. Okay. So you can see there's her stripe, and there's her petals look much more like a daisy, as she said. And there's her bubbles. Turned out great, Glynis. What do you think?
I like it.
Yeah, I do too. Glynis, what do you think about the process when you're not feeling super creative but want to create something? Christy, Sarah, shoot me a picture when you finish yours. It's like I do when I'm free motion quilting. Just change E to L. Yeah, there you go.
Was that Sarah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sarah, when you come to retreat, I can't wait to meet you at retreat. When you come to retreat, we have to talk about some free motion quilting. I need to learn more than I know about it. It is interesting, but we just created a whole art journal page and we didn't have to think. If I can keep talking to you while I'm doing it, then I don't have to think. You know, and that's it's good. It's good sometimes to have a no-brainer, a no-thinker-brainer.
Very much so.
We all have those days or nights. You've been working all day and you'd love to sit down and create, and your brain just can't wrap around doing an actual project. Okay, let's check out Christie's. Ooh, pretty colors. I like the colors. Oh, look at that. There we go. Okay.
Oh, I like that.
There's her bubbles in the blue. She's got dots. Nope, I'm sorry. That is not bubbles. That is, oh, cool petals. Okay, so she's got dots on that one. She's got the petals on that one. She's got the stripes on that one. I love the squiggle stripes. She's got squares. She's got V's. Yep, perfect. Nice. She's got larger dots on that one. Christy, what are your thoughts about that? About this? Look at that. She's got squares and colored in some.
Ooh, I love that.
Love that. You know, the funny thing is you do it when you do something like this just to relax, be creative, no brainer, because, you know, your brain is down. And then you do something like this and you go, wow, I love that. I could do that on a large scale and it would make a really neat background. And I do like the way you did the stripes different in all of them. I like this, the way you did this squiggly stripe. So they're uneven. That one's more of the straight stripes. That one's squiggly stripes. They look really cool. It was really fun. She liked the process. Sarah, shoot me a message through Messenger chat, just like in Facebook. And we'll take a look at Sarah's. It is a fun process, isn't it? All right, let's take a look at Sarah's. Sarah, next time send it to me privately, not the whole group. Oh, there, cool. She did a big page like you did, and so she did bigger swipes. Oh, look at that! Look how her petals are.
Oh, I love that.
The petals are different than mine. I love that. Yep, they're like stacked petals or leaves. There's the stripes. Love that. And there's her circles or bubbles.
Very pretty.
Really cool. Looks like she used a silver metallic pen on it. And that might even be copper metallic. I love the metallic on him. Loving that, Sarah. This is really cool. Okay, so I look at that and I go, okay, that's another way to do a petal or a leaf, like a vine, that I didn't think of that I could do on these with a no-brainer. So you could do a whole nother page and do other ones like that. And then when you're mark making and you just want to add a little something to a page and you can't think of what kind of marks to make, what kind of doodles to make, you can flip open to these things and go, all right, I could do bubbles. I could do petal. Oh, I could do leaves like Sarah's. I could do the squiggly stripes like Christy's. I could do a daisy going out like Glennis's. Then the stripes, and you could do the stripes in 3 or 4 different ways to give you ideas there. That was fun. I'm almost inclined to do another one and do them differently because that was really fun. Okay. So let's then move on to another technique. So get a different piece of paper or a different, turn it, it's dried, so you can turn it to another page in your book. And I was thinking maybe I would use a different media because some of you, maybe you don't have a watercolor palette. I think this was one I picked up a Tuesday morning years ago. I love it because it was, it's a travel one and you can just hold it in your hand right there with that little wire. I'd like to have more of them. I know that I think it's a Prima, so I know that there are some out there, but use something.
That's what these are.
Different. Are they?
Ones are like just
oh,
like that.
Yeah. I love that. We could use our alcohol, not alcohol. We could use our re-inkers, or we could use the regular ink pads. Either one. Let's see. Y'all probably, if you guys all used your ink pads, putting the ink down, and then just putting water on it. You know what? Let me zoom in here on Jen and DM so you can see what they did before we move on. DM, you want to show them your... I'm sorry. I did not mean to ignore those. Oh, cool. She did a huge page, so she didn't get time to finish them all. But look how she's got a different doodle in each one. I like them a lot. And, you know, there's such a difference in the light ones and the dark ones. It's like sometimes I like the light one and maybe I'll use a metallic. Sometimes I like the dark watercolor and use the white on it. I like them both. Ooh, the purple one on the second row on the right-hand side. Yeah, looks like a thumbprint or something. Giant.
That's exactly what I did. I started with circle and just put
tiny
circles around it. And then I put little, this right here. I put this around the circles.
Ah,
love it.
Cool. Oh, yeah, I can see that now. Wow, that is cool. Okay, let's take a look at Jen's. So Jen did different sizes, different shapes on her page. She did some of the swipe. She did some squares, some thin swipes and some thicker swipes, either way. And she's using a paint brush and watered down gesso for her white. And look at it, looks just as good.
I'm having to pick and choose because some sections are still wet and I don't have a dryer on me.
Yeah.
So
without doing the dryer on it, that's a good point. And then wait.
Also, just make splatters on one of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some of the ones
on
that
the whole
wet,
page.
the splatters would
Yep, that would be really cool.
disperse a little.
Yeah. Yeah, but she knows it's wet. She didn't dry it with the dryer, so she's just waiting to do those thicker parts that are wet. Otherwise, they'll just absorb the gesso and become not white for that contrast. They'll become
light pink,
a very light. Yeah, there you go. She just did that on purpose, so you can see the light pink because it just picked up the color that's not dry, which is also okay. It gives you a whole nother look. But doing pages like that with different things on it gives you ideas of different things that you can do on your paper in your art journal. Remember that an art journal is just a place to practice, to experiment, to try different techniques. It's not a final work of art that, you know, must be perfect. We need a place to practice and to learn and to try different techniques. You might have one art journal that you try the same technique all the way through it, and you could see from the beginning to the end how your technique changes with that. You might have one watercolor art journal and one sketch art journal. You know, just do what you want with it. That's what art journal is. Have you all used your distress inks, smushing them down, adding water, and using them to paint with? Sarah, Christy, Glennis?
Yes.
I know you two have. Smooshing. If you've all done that, then I won't do that. I want to try to give you something that maybe you haven't done so much. But maybe everybody hasn't done that. I know Glynis has. I know you two have. Sarah and Christy, have you used that, smushing your ink pad down and then using it with a paintbrush? Well, we've had a lot of re-inkers lately, and I told you that we're going to give you some different ways to make or to use your re-inkers other than hopefully these all go together. We'll see. So let's see. Other than, let's see, scented only basically a vintage photo and black soot, but I've tried that. Okay, vintage photo and black soot on the ink pads, right? And do you have any re-inkers at all? Vintage photo and black soot will work here. Also, if you have a little bit of white acrylic paint, any brand white acrylic paint, you could put 1 drop of white acrylic paint, mix it with water like I will do with these, and you will get something that is thin enough, as thin as ink. Perfect. Christy has no re-inkers. Okay. I know that was Otto, Sarah, that said drinkers. It's re-inkers. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to spray some water down here. Just, spritz in there. I could pour it, but I'm going to spray it. And I am going to drop, what do I want? I'm going to go Tattered Rose. If you're using these, I'm going to recommend 1 drop. If you get going and you feel you want more, get more. But you can't take it out once it's in there. So 1 drop. And I just want that right there in that area because I want to be able to put another one right next to it. I want to be able to put here, I would say pick 3 or 4 colors. So that is Tattered Rose, which almost looks, let's see if it almost looks peachy, probably because of the 1 drop. We'll give it a 2nd drop there. Tattered Rose, I'm going to go Speckled Egg.
Hello, Walnut Stain. You can tell I re-inked that.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Look at that. Yeah. Okay. So this is Speckled Egg. Okay. And then I've got room for 2 more on here. I think I will. This is just a plastic tray, by the way. You can use anything. You could use a ceramic plate, plastic plate. I'm going to go Wild Honey and hope that gives me a little bit different. Ooh, I only wanted 1, but I got 2 drops. So we'll see if I have to add more water. And I'm going to go Weathered Wood. Now, I'm purposefully trying to use colors that we don't use all the time. I love to mix Victorian Velvet with Vintage Photo. We use a lot of Vintage Photo, a lot of black soot, a lot of the grays. I'm trying to get to some things here that you might have, whether it's the ink pad or the re-inker, but you don't use as much. So there's some Weathered Wood. Now, if it's darker than what you want, and you may not know it until you put it on your paper, but if it's darker, you just add more water. If it's not dark enough, then you could add 1 more drop of ink. Oh, I love this Wild Honey. That is so pretty. Okay, and this one is Speckled Egg. Oop, that now just got a little bit of yellow in it. And Tattered Rose. I didn't wash my brush out between. I just wiped it off, and I should have washed it out. Okay, so now we're going to take our piece of watercolor paper and pick a color to start with. I love that Wild Honey. I'm going to start with that. Get some of that on your brush, and we're just going to make some circles. And as Jen mentioned before, it's easiest to go a half a circle one direction, come back up to the top, and go a half a circle the other direction, and then fill it in. So just make some circles. And again, I'm not going to worry about it being perfectly pigmented across. I'm okay, and I would like for it to have, you know, some darker, lighter areas, and let the little puddle dry right there. So I'm going to make several of them since I've got this color on my brush. You could wash it and go to another color right away. But since I've got it on my brush and I know I'm going to use all of them, I'm going to go ahead and do a couple more. And all we're doing is making circles with them. So this is something that is a great technique like the one we just did if you want to be creative and you're just low energy, or you've hit a creative wall and you just need to get your creativity back. This is another good one for that. However, this one can also lead somewhere else. So I'm going to wash my brush. I've got 4 circles. I want to make sure. Fired brick, wild honey, shabby shutters. Ooh, pretty. No drinker, Sarah. Sarah, what colors are you using? And Christy, what colors are you using? I'm going to go over here to the, I should keep these in order of where I have them. I did not put, so this is speckled egg I'm going to do now. That's really light. That's okay. I think I will add a second drop to it though. The speckled egg and the weathered wood are, they're not the same color, but they're the same depth of color. One is more grayish, purplish blue, and the other is, well, like robin's egg blue. But with the re-inker, and when you water down your ink pad of the speckled egg, it is a very light, pretty blue. Also, when you're using your regular ink pads or your re-inkers, remember that they are transparent, which is what gives us that watercolor look. They are transparent. And then when you use oxides, which we may get to in a different exercise, oxides are more opaque. So right now we want this transparent look that comes with the regular inks. Okay, what colors are you using, DM?
I am using walnut stain, faded blue jeans, old paper, and
Ooh,
lumberjack plaid.
I like it. I like it. Jen, how about you?
I grabbed what I could first put my hands on. I have got lumberjack plaid, uncharted mariner.
Oh, I love that. It's one of my favorite all-time blues.
And peeled paint and the new scorched umber.
Cool. That will be great with those. Yeah, you can use as many colors on this as you want. It's not only 3 or 4 or whatever. Use however many colors you want. Let me wash
and
that
I'm
one.
also using my water pens. So what I'm doing is I'm doing a circle of the ink on the outside, and then I'm just using whatever's left in it and the water to do the inside to pull the ink around.
Okay. And as you do these circles, you want them to get it right up next to each other so they touch. Might even overlap.
You didn't say that.
Sorry. Sorry. It's okay. Let them touch and let some of that water even grab them and give you a little bit different color in between where they meet. Even watercolor paper is going to buckle when it gets saturated with water, so don't worry about that. I'm putting these right up next to each other, and it may overlap just a bit and pick up some of that color, but I'm trying to not use my brush to run over the other color, or I'm then pulling it into the color I'm using. When they run together and create another color, great. but then the rest of the circle is the actual color that I'm putting up. So now I'm going to grab some of this weathered wood. It is pretty. I haven't used the weathered wood re-inker like this before. I like it. It's a lavender gray.
Mm.
And you know, sometimes you get kind of different colors when you use the re-inkers than when you are stamping with them with the pads. Or even when you put it down and spritz it with water and use it as a watercolor straight off the pad.
Yeah, because it's a different concentrate of color.
Yeah, exactly. So just keep switching between them all. I'm going back and even adding a little bit to these circles so that they meet the ones around them, because I wasn't thinking when I did it, which is this is supposed to be a no-brainer exercise. I wasn't thinking and left a little bit too much space between them. Not enough space to put another circle, but too much to have them be next to each other.
There we go.
Sarah only has oxides. Oh, interesting, Sarah. Do you have any of the re-inkers and you don't have any of the
oxides will work too. It just won't look.
It'll be different though. Yeah, they're more opaque. Sarah, do you have any other water-based?
Hey,
did not say Siri. Sarah, you could actually do this with your watercolor paints as well. I'm just trying to use something different so people can see that they can use something different. But you can go straight to your watercolor paints if you have just a watercolor palette and keep using those. Another thing you guys could use if you had is watercolor pencils. These are the distress watercolor pencils. They're really bold and vibrant.
That's what I'm going to use because I don't really actually have a lot of inks.
Mm-hmm.
And these colors together look very drab, and I don't like that.
I don't think they look drab.
Yes, but I need some, mustard seed or fossilized amber or something.
Do you have those in the ink pad? Use that.
I don't. That's what I'm saying.
Do you, or re-inker. Do you have a watercolor paint that's bright?
Yeah, yes, but I was working with the distress colors.
Yes. So what Jen is doing, you can mix them. You can mix and match like Jen is doing. They don't have to be. You don't even have to stick with only one medium.
This is wild honey.
I love wild honey. That's what the yellow is on my paper is wild honey. So that tattered rose is really light and the yellow is really bright. I like the softness of those, but the yellow wild honey is really overpowering. So I'm going to add another drop of ink to my tattered rose and see if I can just bring that out just a little bit. Holding my paper down so it doesn't run everywhere because it is saturated and it is buckling. Now, circles are always a go-to. If you can't think of anything to do, sit down and draw circles with any of your color Doesn't matter whether it's inks or markers or watercolor paints, oil paints, anything. Draw circles. You can always do something with circles later too. Okay. And maybe I need to thin that wild honey out. Yeah, thin it out. Not with more color, with more water, because it is so strong against those. I'm just going to add more water and try to make it that a little bit thinner, which will just lighten up the color. All right, and I give the weathered wood. I always start with 1 drop of ink because depending on what the color of the ink is, sometimes that pigment is really, really intense, and it's harder to add enough water then to thin it out, but you can keep adding ink if you want it later. So, okay, so I added 1 more drop to the weathered wood. I think I'm going to like this now. Getting these in. Oh, didn't even do that on purpose, but look how cool. Right there where I did the weathered wood, and then it picked up that tattered rose and pulled it into it. We'll get some cool effects when they start mixing on their own. The giant there.
I'd lose my head if it weren't attached.
Join happy paper people. Join the club. Yeah.
Having a great Saturday.
Nice to hear I'm not the only one. That's why our heads are attached, right? All right, I'm just going to take some water and go onto these circles that I already drew here. Let's see if I can bring them out just a little bit.
I'll say the peeled paint watercolor pencils and the peeled paint ink are very close in color.
Really? That's cool. Sometimes they're very different, which sometimes I don't mind, but you know. What is it, Lucy?
Hi, Lucy.
That sounds like Lucy Bear.
That is Lucy, and that's all of Diane's kids are across the street, so there's like 7 or 8 vehicles, and they're loading stuff up. So she's hearing them. It's okay, sweetie.
They're not stealing from her. They're allowed to take it.
She misses her Diane too. Diane was one of her favorite
she does.
people. She loved her. All right, let's see here. I'll pull this out.
You know what's interesting is the scorched timber. When you use it in this way, you're seeing all of the different colors in it.
Oh, cool! I almost was going to do that with lumberjack plaid.
And that's scorched timber. These are both scorched timber.
Oh, cool!
And that dot. And this dot over here.
Scorched timber has a lot of other undertones, gray and red. DM Christy likes yours, says it's just gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
She's probably still asleep. Where is Margie?
Yeah, she's probably still asleep.
Margie's a night owl.
I know if I wake up in the middle of the night, I can always message Margie.
Come on. I am so clumsy this afternoon.
That's all right. You're allowed. Okay, so let's do some of this. You don't have to fill your sheet, but mine is just about full because I did a half sheet.
Somewhere around here, I have a scorched timber watercolor pencil, but you'd think I would have put it with my watercolor pencils.
Really?
No.
Uh,
That would just be to make too much sense.
right. Now you're
Exactly.
following my logic, Jen. No, that would have been too smart. Can't do that. I'm just going to fill in that spot. And every spot doesn't have to be filled in either.
Well, I'm going to substitute with some walnut stain.
Okay.
The other thing with watercolors is they do react differently on dry paper than they do on wet paper.
Yes,
If we had started this out on wet paper, they would have smudged together and bled into each other a lot more.
A lot more. So as my paper gets more and more saturated, that is what is happening. And
that's what gets the melding too.
Yes, when I know that this area is really wet, all I'm doing is picking up a little bit of color and then touching the edge of something else. And that water picks it up and brings it into it. So, yep, she is absolutely right. So if it's really wet, you can pick up a little bit of another color, bring it to the edge and let it grab it and pull it in. I'm liking putting just a little bit of this wild honey yellow here and there and letting the water pick it up. If it's not saturated, you can always add, just get water on your brush and put water.
Honey, what's up?
Hey, Mark.
American Pride, the vacuum out my truck.
Okay. So.
Look when it expired.
Uh-oh.
Oh, my goodness.
6 years ago. So that means.
An old bank card that expired 6 years ago that is lost.
Been in there about 7.5, 8 years.
He cleaned up every day because it's still warm here.
Just found. Wow. That's crazy.
So.
Thank you, honey.
Yep. I'll be back shortly.
Okay.
Okay. So then we can just leave that as it is, or we can do something else, or we can let it dry or make it dry. I'm going to grab my heat tool. It's not super big. It shouldn't take too long. We'll make it dry. The only thing that won't dry quickly is if you have great big puddles. But then I'll tilt the paper and let that go somewhere else, or just blot where the giant puddle is to get up the majority of it so that it can dry. Christy loves how colorful yours is, Jen.
Oh, thank you. Just playing around.
Yep.
I'm lifting some color on purpose by wetting it in like a puddle.
Yep.
Letting the color loosen.
Yep.
And then lifting the shape of the splotch out. So you see this one here.
Okay. Now,
there.
I wanted to do this portion of the exercise because when you're having a low energy day and you just want to do something creative, that is really super easy to do and doesn't take any brain cells or much energy. Okay. However, we could spend a whole live or a whole Monday Jumpstart doing that same technique and taking it 10 different ways. There are a lot of other things that you could do. While that is wet, you could touch it with things like these sea sponges. You could do that, right? And press it into while it's damp and get some different texture in there. Any sponges are going to have texture. I've got these 4. I think I have one set of these left in the, I'm not sure if they're on the website, but they're in the shop. One set of those sea sponges. I love those for things like that. And you can just dab those on, press them on, and while it's still damp, and get some texture with that. You can take this And you could take your white and your black, a white gel pen, black gel pen, or Posca, and a gold Posca. You can go around the circles several times and let them be loose, free-formed circles. You could, after you've got some of the colors to list together, and you've got some cool sections that have one color, a second color, and then they've come together in the middle, you can go through with these pens and you can follow some of those lines to just do some cool mark making with that. You can take some of your stamps. There's just a few of mark making stamps, and you can press your mark making stamps into your ink and then press them around and get some mark making. This is how you take this just basic watercolor exercise that I didn't have to think about, you know, that I could do. A Posca pen, just a second, Christy, I'll get to that. And you can take it to something that can be a great background. For a card, you could cut this, and this would be a nice background for a card. Speaking of which, thank you, Christy, for the beautiful card you sent last week. You really made my week. Have to tell you that.
It's a paint pen, Christy. It's a paint pen. Christy asked what a Posca pen was.
Posca
Isn't it acrylic or is it oil?
It's acrylic. It's an acrylic paint pen. Posca is the brand. And I think I'm going to get some for the shop because I really do like them. But I know you can get on Amazon too. It's Posca, Posca. It is an acrylic paint pen. I have a whole bunch of different colors of them. And it's like being able to write with a pen. You saw me do that with the white one on here, being able to write with a pen, but it's actually acrylic paint when it comes out. So I use a lot. If you only got one or two, I would just get the black and white one. I use the black and white a lot. The gold and silver, probably next. And the colors, I'm not sure if I should have gotten all the colors or not. I don't know if they'll be dead and dried before I ever get around to using them all. I just don't use them as often, but certainly plenty of ways to use them. So then you could take the white on darker colors. The white looks cool. On the lighter colors, the dark looks cool. I think the black or the gold would look, want to shake them up first, get that paint mixed up. We'll do some, actually, I think I'll do a little bit of mark making with this stamp, and then we'll take the gold pen. Of course, after I do that, I'm going to look at it and go, that just needs a black pen. And you could use black soot, or you could use an archival ink. Doesn't really matter. So this has kind of got bubbles and I don't know what on it, bubbles and something. They're just stamps that I keep and use for mark making. And you can just, when I do that, I usually kind of roll it. I don't want the whole clean stamp, but I want enough of it that I can kind of see a pattern or a texture. You could take something that has text or script on it. This one does. See that little arrow that points down? This is just one I use for mark making on backgrounds. That arrow tells me that that's the bottom. If I want the script to be upright, sometimes don't care. But if I want the script to be upright, oh, of course, I did that wrong. That arrow is pointing to the top. I read the arrow backwards. And the script looks cool on the super light ones. I did, Christy. It was just, you made my week. Thank you. Great way to make super easy backgrounds to do anything with. So it's not a large piece, so I don't want to do too many of the script. You could do a little brick pattern here. Here's just some lines and just some like bubbles. But what that tells you is if you don't have a stamp to do that with, you can just draw lines and bubbles. You don't have to have a stamp to do that. Here's one that has an eye, which can be super fun. Let's see if we can get this eye into one of those into one of these bubbles. Might be fun. Oh, that didn't come out very cleanly. It needs a flatter, smoother paper because it's got all the texture. It's not a very deep stamp, and watercolor paper is bumpy. So I'm going to see if I can spread a little bit more paint on that. Of course, that's archival, so it's not really going to do anything, but I can put a little bit more color. So hopefully that'll just to take the edge off of the edge of that stamp. I don't really want to see the edge so much. Here's a little face that is fun to use sometimes. This one is a deeper stamp. The Diane Reevely stamps are fun to use because they are fun and funky. This one is like way old computer paper, dots and dashes, and you know.
Yes, but the way stencils can work, Sarah,
yes,
is if the back side of it gets here, I'll show you something.
Yes, you can use stencils instead of stamps.
Here, I'll show you.
You don't want to really put the watercolor through the stencil, but
No.
you could use the stencil on your watercolor background that you've just created.
So
is that what you did, Sarah, was put the watercolor on or through the stencil? Because yeah, that will give you a little bit of trouble.
The other thing is that if you do that, you're also getting watercolor on the side here if you do a really big one. So let me get some watercolors out.
But because it's so thin, it just typically runs underneath the stencil. That's hard.
But you can use the opposite side as a print.
Yes, that is true. Okay, Sarah, so once you've done this with your watercolor, then you can grab your stencils. We'll let DM go with, because she's going to show you a different technique that you could do what you're thinking. But
so you see how all that watercolor is just stuck on there? You let it go and you grab another piece of your paper. I'll just do it like this. You lift it up and you turn it over onto the other side. So then you're going to get the opposite.
You should get just the outline of the flower.
Just the outline of the flower.
And then you could color it in. Yeah, watercolor is
really quickly done.
Yeah, but it's hard with watercolor to get the exact right consistency to do that.
Yes.
Because it can't be too thin and it can't be too thick.
Right.
So that is really difficult.
So I actually do this part with my stencils a lot because I like to pick it up and just sort of go over it like that to see the different layers of it.
Yeah.
So I tend to, that's how I use stencils with watercolor, is I tend to daub it in paint and then stick it on.
Mm-hmm. And I will take the watercolor background that we just did, Sarah, and then take a stencil and use any kind of a brush with it and just set it down and go through the stencil like that to get your mark making. I don't want a lot of them because I just did all those stamps, but I have room that I can do a couple. So just put the stencil down and use my something that's a little easier. Here's one. There's one I love to use with paste through these. The bubbles are always good. And I can use a few big bubbles up here. And that will add a little bit of depth of color. So once you've got your base down, then you can grab your stencil and do a little bit of mark making on it with any color, depending. If you wanted to bring out the pink, you could use a darker pink. If you wanted to bring out the gray or the blue, we got room right there on that yellow. Let's put, there you go. And just do some mark making through the stencils with your brush. So that's an easier way. It is difficult to do DM's technique to get just the right
viscosity. Yeah, it's never a perfect thing. It's always just an
Which is why you like it, because it isn't perfect each time. It's just
right.
It's a very free flow, like the water created it.
Right. The other thing you can do is you can put the stencil down and actually lift up color through the stencil by using a water napkin or, you know, a paper towel that's already wet.
You can do that with acrylic, but you could do it with water, where you put a lot of watercolor down and there's a lot of paint there. What she's saying, Sarah, is then you put your stencil down, like with the flower, and then you use a rag, or I would start with another piece of paper even, to press it on it and pick up that ink with the other stencil, and then use a rag or paper towel or a dryer baby wipe to go like that and pick up the watercolor that's sitting there. And then when you lift it up, you should have, like, the flower would be lighter and the watercolor would be darker around it. So you could still get the stencil impression, but you're removing water removing color instead of adding it. So I am going
You have to have it really dark, though. I mean,
Yeah.
you can sort of see it on this, but I don't have anything that's dark enough. I don't think that will work. I might have a smaller one right here. Oh, yeah, this one will work, I'm sure.
I'm going to take this gold pen now. So I've got the watercolor in the back, and then I did mark making with the stamps. And now I'm going to take the gold Posca, which is acrylic paint, which you could use with a fine tip brush. You could use a gel. A lot of you probably have metallic gel pens. I don't have metallic gel pens right now, so a gold metallic gel pen would do really great on this to get the exact same look. And you can choose whether to follow some of the lines of it or to just kind of do rough circles around the circles that you have. And let me think. I'm not sure. I think okay, so there's rough circles around the circle. So I went around it 3 times. I don't want them to be perfectly on top of each other. I don't want a border. I just want, like, the circle image. And over here, a few times. Over here. Kind of goes off the paper on that one. So it's like mark making with your own metallic pen or metallic ink pen. And I think I might want to do some in gold and some in black. I need a little more depth of color, or a little more depth. Black. Let's see if that.
Even just splattering water on it will work too.
Oh, yeah.
The longer you let the water sit, the more it will disturb the paint. So if you want it lighter, just let it sit.
True. I got me a fried egg right there. A nice center. That's kind of cool looking. And I may want to go around all of them. I may not want to go around all of them. Who knows? Okay, now the gold looks super light compared to the black when I did that. So I'm going to do one black, even with the gold ones. And now you can, I mean, you can keep going on this however you want. If you like it, stop wherever you like it. If you don't, or it doesn't feel done, it doesn't feel finished. Sometimes I'll go back in here to these spots that are between. There's a little blank spot right there. It's a little triangle. So I might just color that triangle in. If there's a little bigger spot, like right here. I don't know, what is that, a trapezoid? Been too long. I might take this one and just draw lines in it instead of coloring it in. Then I might look at that and go, I don't like that. I'm just going to color it in. I like it better. Color it in. It's like Glennis sent hers. Give me a second and we'll take a look at that. But that brings some depth as well. So got a little spot over here. Then you are also bringing in that neurographic art type of process. I like just these little tiny ones that are hidden between. There's a little spot right between those. They don't have to be large. And this actually is really good for your brain, even though you really don't have to think about this. This is literally no-brainer doodling, but really good for your brain.
Nobody look, I'm going to make you sick with my camera.
If you get seasick easy, don't look at Jen's
Okay.
for a minute.
All better now.
Camera is flying.
I was just zooming in a little bit so people could see what I was doing.
Yeah, I really do like these Posca pens. It's like being able to paint with acrylic paint, but they work like and feel like a pen, a marker. I know that they have them with all different types of heads. I only have this thin one. They have them with like chisel and bigger and bigger around. Okay, while I'm doing that, let me go pull up Glennis's. See what she did here. Ooh, there we go. Okay. So she's got 3 colors. And you can see that she did black circles around some, white circles around some. Looks like she did black circles over the lighter ones, white circles around the darker ones. I like it. And notice like right here, where she let the paint pool and it gave you that darker shadow. And here where it's lighter in the middle, the paint pooled around the outside. I love that. That's that natural gradient of color that you don't have to think about trying to figure out how to do. You just do and not worry about. Okay, let's look at Sarah's. Okay. Watercolor paints on the watercolor circles. Like it. But what's the second one? Oh, okay. So Sarah, if you did a bunch of watercolor circles, just light watercolor circles, and then you did this over the top of it, that would look really, really cool. So this is some, I forgot what she said. They're either stamping or stenciling with this one. Look, how cool would this look over the top of her circles?
Mm-hmm.
I think it would look awesome because you can actually, there you go, zoom in a little bit. You can see the actual buttons. That would look really neat on top of the circles, Sarah. If that's, it looks like a stamp. If it's a stamp, yep, just put it in some ink, a dark, it needs to be dark, either like black soot or an archival black. Anything dark should be able to get you that. So the more I do this and fill in these little areas here.
Yeah.
Cool. That vine would look really cool on top of those circles. Yeah, you can mark make with anything. It doesn't have to be something that somebody said, here's a mark making stamp. Any stamp you like, or anything that creates some kind of cool mark you like will work.
I especially love stuff from daily life like bubble wrap. And
yes, absolutely. You know, keep a shoebox or something in a drawer, a little bag of things when you see things around life that maybe get thrown away that you could make. I especially like to keep circles. They're great for things like this. They're great for when you're just spraying. They're great for gel plates, but circles of all sizes, like the end of a toilet paper roll is a good circle. You stick it in the paint and then stick it on to something, or you just stick it into the paint that's on the gel plate and make those marks. And when if it gets too beat up, you just cut it a half an inch or an inch off of it, and you've got another one. But the caps of everything, I have just tons of little caps, like something what runs out, you've got this cap, that's one, and it's easy to hold because it's deep enough, but that's one size. I've got tons of caps like that are all different sizes of circles. So depending on what you're doing and what look you want, if you want multiple sizes, or if it's a small piece, you need small circles, not great big large ones. But just keep a mark making box that you throw stuff like that in. You can do tons of stuff with circles, even if circles is all that you have. So if I were to call this done after doing these, that's a really cool, like neurographic art piece that started out as brainless, mindless watercolor and ended up with a really cool neurographic art page. We have several videos on neurographic art. If you have not done that, they are all Monday jump starts, but you can just go into YouTube and search neurographic art. Just go into our channel, HPP channel, search neurographic art there, and several will come up. Because we did neurographic art quite a while ago, and then we did 3 or 4 different ways to approach the neurographic art technique, get something a little different. So if you've done it before and you'd like some variations. Okay, and then I might choose to go around here and put a little black border all the way around the outside. I don't know. I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure how I will use this. But I do like to take advantage of these little spots that are by the edge in between, because they look pretty cool when they're dark. Okay, so I think I'm gonna call that right there. So Jen loves what you're doing. So see, can't do both at the same time. So thank you for doing that, Jen. So I drew just straight circles around here, just no particular, not trying to go around the circle, just circles. The other thing you can do is take your pen and start following some of the ridges of the ink. You can see where the ink crossed over with another one. They listed together and came up with a whole nother color. And when you highlight those by going around with them with the white or the black, it just brings you a whole nother technique. Really fun. This one looks like it didn't get any around it at all. And that kind of did. Okay. But that brings me another square right there. If you look at it and there's a spot that jumps out to you saying there should be some black there, or that didn't get a circle around it, or whatever it is, just do it. Just make one. There we go. That one. So, and DM is doing hers even different. So and that's the thing. See, this is where you get to doodling. You don't know how to start. You just got a blank paper and your brain isn't, thinking really hard or clearly about all that. Grab some watercolors, grab a paintbrush, little thing of water or a spray bottle of water is really all you need. Sit down in front of a movie and just start playing with watercolors. They don't have to be circles. We could do the same thing we just did with just putting watercolors down in wherever, splotches, and then, connecting them together, and then go back and do this. And you could do any shape, or you can do the outline. And that I would typically do like Jen is doing, the outline of all the different pieces of watercolor.
And I'm being choosy too. I'm not doing every single one.
Stamp on
things that look really interesting.
Yep, the ones that look interesting to you. And then if you want, you can even go in and doodle instead of doing these mark making stamps. Go in and doodle on it. Did I bring that one in? If I did. Go in and doodle on it with your own doodles, which is what DM is more likely to do her own doodles and not use the stamps. But sometimes you're doing a background for something and you want to use the stamps. You like that kind of, we want that kind of mark making. So it all depends on what your purpose or intent is. And if it's just a play, then just let your brain play. And nothing good has to come out of it, I mean, art journal is just to play in and to practice. And remember this, it's only paper. If you did it on a piece of paper and you really don't like it, if the paper's, just pretty much used, you can throw it away, try it again. If it's in your book, then you can take that piece of paper and cover it with paint or gesso or whatever and do something else on it. Even your book is not ever permanently something if you don't want it to be. A lot of times I'll do brayer off right onto my book pages because that gives, this was brayering off of something that I was doing, but this is actually the Tim Holtz watercolor. I did brayer here too, but this was the watercolor pencils and I just picked it up and started doing this. I just wanted to see, I hadn't used them yet. And then took a watercolor brush. Let's see, probably the big one. And went over it with a little bit of water. This is just a water brush, not a watercolor brush, just a water brush to see how they activated, how they looked when they got the water on them. Just a little bit of water. So, this page won't stay this way, but that's all I did that time. Doesn't have to be anything. Okay, here's one where a long time ago, I did brayer off on both of them. It was a brayer off page. They're obviously blues and greens. And then I glued these glued the leaves down, and they're cool. They've just been sitting there though, and I covered them with a clear coat, clear gesso, just to protect them. And they're real leaves off the maple tree, and so I just left them there. And then a while ago, when I was sitting, looking for a brain draining exercise like this, because I wanted to be creative, I just didn't have a lot left in me that day or that week. I just grabbed the white gel pen and started veining the leaves and going around it. And that's all it is just regular leaves with white gel pen. And then I went over to this side, same white gel pen, and just started making marks. Marks do not have to have any rhyme or reason or be in any particular order. The only thing I typically do is I drew bubbles here, then I'll probably draw some bubbles down here, at least one other place. So there's something else of like on the page to help balance it out. But these started out as ski wampus squares, but then they really ended up looking like diamonds. And these kind of swirly S's and put those just facing every which way. Hashtags, pluses or cross marks, you know, anything. A mark is exactly that, just a mark. And so then filled that page up with mark making, and I really liked, because it looked to me like it was just fun play. Obviously fun play if I had something to brayer off, and then just doodling. So sometimes it's all my brain can handle is just the doodle. So here's another one where I brayered off onto this page. And then I was using, that actually is a stencil. It was a stencil I was using on the gel plate. And I had rolled over, brayered over the stencil. And so when I pick the stencil up, there's going to be paint on the stencil on the part that isn't the holes. So then you can set that down and you can take a baby wipe and rub the stencil, and that paint that's on it will go into the holes and give you that stencil. And so I got that stencil all over the place. So it just starts a really nice background. You do not have to sit down and start a watercolor, an art journal page start to finish. There's another brayer off. Might have even been the same time, same colors. But yeah, you don't have to finish an art journal page once you sit down to start it. Sometimes it is just only that extra paint or extra brayer or extra spray or watercolor, whatever it is. And then you can work on it another time. So, all right. I think we have time, 15 minutes. I'll show you one more technique. Haven't done this one for a very long time. I honestly didn't think we'd have time to get to it, but I think we do. So let me grab.
Thank you, Glynis.
Piece of paper. Get rid of all these things.
To be honest, I'm just zoning while listening to Marianne.
Jen has had,
and that's exactly what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, she's had a crazy week.
It's really nice.
Yeah, isn't it? Now, see, that's exactly what it's supposed to be. When we've had those weeks and you just need to decompress, that's what this should do. And so she doesn't even have to think about it. She's checking comments, just, listening and just playing, just zoning. That's what these kind of things are for me. And I love that. Love that.
Sometimes I have a decision I can, while you're setting up, Marianne, I have a decision I can make here.
Mm-hmm.
There's very obvious lines here. And there's this obvious line. Mm-hmm. There's this obvious line and this obvious line. Now, if I were to do them all, it might look a little bit busy. So I can decide, do I want to highlight this gray?
I think
circle?
You should do them all.
I don't think I do, because sometimes they work, like right here.
Sometimes it gets really busy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have some of that already in here where it is kind of all
okay.
highlighted.
I see that. Yep.
So here,
because the blue one has some of that, then I wouldn't. I didn't see that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go around this light piece here. But I was thinking, if I do that, then if I do this circle, then I have a really interesting shape to choose.
Right. Then you really have three shapes out of one shape.
And I could do this one, but since I already have the irregular over there, I think I'll just do this one. Yeah. So then I'll end up with a really cool.
Try those and see if it needs more. You can do another one.
Right. I might keep going, but those are the kind of interesting decisions. And sometimes you come back and you decide you don't really want to do it.
And you start with the one that you really do want to highlight, because no matter what, I do want to do this one. So do that one first and then see what else it needs to add it to it. All right, I could really use, oopsie, I did not mean to do that. I could really use one of my credit cards. I got a whole stack of them.
One of your credit cards? You want mine that my husband just found?
Yeah, with an old expiration date.
Yeah.
That is so funny. You probably looked for it for 3 months.
We did.
Got a new one.
I'm sure.
Oh. Okay, so this one we are going to, and you guys can keep doing that if you want, because I didn't tell you about this one. I didn't think we would even have time to get to it. So I'm going to listen,
and then I'm probably gonna do what you're doing. I just want to see what it is you're doing first.
Soap bubbles. So we've talked about this as admin, and we may do a jump start just on soap bubbles because there are so many different ways that you can use these. And I only really want to highlight this one because it's along with the same type of thing that we're already doing. Let's see here. But yeah, we may do a live where we're doing all kinds of soap bubble techniques. But I'm just grabbing a piece of glossy cover from some paper pad because I don't know where my credit cards. Well, they're over there in a container. I've got like a whole container full of old credit cards, you know, and like gift cards and restaurant gift cards, Hobby Lobby gift cards. Don't use them enough that I've made them a place close to my desk. Okay, so I put some water on my watercolors. I'm going to take this for just a minute here so you guys can see up closer. I put water on my watercolors and letting them start to get saturated so I can pull some color from there. I'm going to keep this close by, and let's move that out of the way. And so in here, I've just got some water. I've got a colored bowl so that hopefully you'd be able to see. It's just water, and I just squirted some dish soap in it. So I'm going to make some bubbles with my straw.
That's blowing out, not sucking in.
I don't want the bubbles in my tummy. I want the bubbles in the bowl.
You can see your light X's on the bubbles.
Yeah, you can. That's kind of cool, actually. That's getting really big and tall. I don't know if you can see it's like 6 inches tall. Okay, and we can keep blowing as we go to get the bubbles that we want. But all I'm going to do with this is go in and try to pick up some of the bubbles. These are great big, and the great big ones do not transfer as well as the small ones. So I don't know if that means that I have too much or not enough soap in there. I'm going to puncture some of these because I want smaller bubbles. So I'm puncturing some of the big ones as I blow. Okay, and let's see if we can we just want to pick them up, and we want the bubbles to come onto our watercolor paper. I'm going to go around the bottom here and see if I can get some of these smaller bubbles. The small bubbles are amazing. If I had a bigger paper, the big bubbles would be really cool too. But using the small paper, there's not as much room for big bubbles. Okay, that's enough to start because we can always add more. So now I've got bubbles on my paper. And now I will grab my brush and get it saturated with water and color. And then I'm just going to touch the bubbles and just let a drop of color come off the brush onto the bubbles. I'm going to rinse that, and I'm going to grab a bright fuchsia. And I'm going to need to we had this whole thing covered with bubbles, and look what a little space it is. Bubbles, just like water, shrivel up to nothing. So I'm going to stop for a minute and get more bubbles. I'll turn that around. I don't want all the great big ones. I want some of these little
Takes you back to blowing bubbles in your milk, doesn't it?
Yeah, which is kind of relaxing and no-brainer, right? touch them with their hand, they're going to pop immediately. So the card or a piece of cardstock, your straw works great. And then you don't want to leave them there too long because they will start to dissipate, as you see, because we can always add more. We can keep adding more bubbles, but we want to get the color onto them. And I'm just touching the top and letting a drop of watercolor paint go off the top and right into, got to make sure that that your watercolor paint is wet enough. I'm saturating my brush between, I don't think you can see my water, but you can see I go over here, get water, come back between every single time I do it, and then barely touching the bubbles and letting that go. It follows the lines of the bubbles, which is so cool. If you don't have enough water on it, it's not going to travel as well. So you really do have to saturate it. I want to pick up a little more of that blue, so I'm rinsing off my brush. I don't need to rub or wipe it off with a towel because I want it really saturated. So I just put it straight into that blue to pick up a little bit of that. I'm going to set that down, see if I can set it on that blue. Yeah, that'll work. And get some more bubbles. Add these. So the big ones are cool, as I said, on a great big page. But on a smaller page, I do want medium to small size ones. There's just not room for big ones. Although the big ones, if you keep blowing, if you keep pushing them away and blowing at them, the big ones become, they kind of mush together and become smaller. All right, my paper's starting to get floppy, which is why a plastic credit card works great. Very saturated brush. I'm doing it quickly because, one, so the bubbles don't go away, but two, because it is very saturated, and if I go slowly, I'm going to drip between here and there. And I want to drip on the bubbles, but I don't want to drip all over my desk. Let's see if I can see that. Okay, let me get some more pink down there. So I have the blue and the pink, and there will be some points where they merge and they will become purple, which is cool. They will create their own purple without me having to do anything to make the purple. Need more water. It's not as drippy. I want it to be drippy. I should be able to just even go like this and drip the water right on it. So if it's not wet enough that it could drip, just get in there and get more water in your brush.
Yes, Lisa. If you put some glycerin in the mix, it will make it stronger. That is, you are right.
In the what? The bubbles?
Yes.
Oh,
make the bubbles stronger if you add glycerin to your water and your mix.
Yes, good point. Okay, so I'm going to stop there in the interest of time. Now, what I would do is either let it dry or make it dry. Whoop. Nope. Forgot. It's watercolor. I do that with other things, but not with watercolor. If I make it dry, all I'm going to do is push all the watercolor together. So I don't want to do that. Sorry, I totally forgot. I'm going to let it dry on its own. Can you see underneath it how the watercolor paint is like the bubbles?
Yep.
There, you can kind of see underneath that. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. So if I let it dry on its own, this will just disappear. Because I don't want that. I want a whole bubbly page. It's watercolor. I can just wipe it off, right?
Sherman.
Sherman take. And I can put more bubbles there, and I can come back.
It's just Daddy.
I can come back and do some large and some small bubbles, and I can redo that section that I accidentally started to dry, forgetting that I don't want to do that on watercolor. Don't want to do that on watercolor. Need more water in here.
The minute I get busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you could also use your re-inkers in this. My thought is just if I grab watercolor palette and some water, a brush, and sit down with my art journal book, what are all things I can do with my, watercolor paint? Now, the other thing is, as this dries, the bubbles are going to shrink up, but as it dries, the bubbles on your paper are also going to shrink up. So if you do have some great big ones, don't freak out thinking they're too big for the size of my paper, because they do shrink and they will become medium ones. And the little ones will become micro, which is super, super cool. That's one of those people look like and go, how did you get all those teeny tiny little dots? Get enough water in here. Now the paper is so wet. Okay, but that'll work. And what I want to show you, and I'm trying to be careful not to just let it, if I turn it, I can just like literally dump it off the page. And I don't want to do that because it'll just mix all the water with it. But as you watch it, you can see it change. And then look over here. If it will focus, this edge along here that looks solid is not. It is teeny tiny micro dots that end up looking so cool. So your great big ones will shrink down to be medium ones. Your medium ones will shrink down to be small. And your small bubbles will shrink down to be tiny micro dots. All of this is tiny micro dots. On camera, it probably looks clear, and all around the edge here is micro dots. So I would just let that dry, do your whole page or whatever, paper you want to do, let it dry on its own, and then come back to it. Oh, that's looking really cool. Both of you.
Don Marie, yours look 3D.
Yeah, it does. So she's doing some of the neurographic centers in them. She's also doing some mark making on them.
I also did a lot of spray dotting on mine, like with just plain water. And I did put some gold spots on it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I did the circles, I used the closest color that I had in these kind of markers to the color that was on here.
Cool.
I did put yellow around the antique, whichever one I used here, antique linen. But I think I'm going to actually leave those blank, so they're actually more of the background. And then I just did this with each one, and then I'm putting in the holes between them little things.
So if you do 2 or 3 circles and then you've got spaces between those, that's where she's doing the cool mark making. That's awesome. And whoops, let's see this one. There's Jen's. So now she's adding some white splats. So when you get done, white splats, gold splats, or black splats can never do you wrong. Can never do you wrong.
Can't really see them very much on camera.
A little
and
bit.
Once they dry, they look much better too.
Yes. Yeah.
Now these will pick up and bleed color because they are water based. So they'll look really interesting.
So as you put water on top of water, it's going to reactivate the thing that's dried underneath it a little bit. And like I can see one dried there on the left towards the bottom middle. It looks really cool. It's right over a black spot. Yep. It's almost dried, isn't it? That one looks really
it's literally a puddle. So the other thing that
okay. That's why, because as it sits as a puddle, the edges go out and you get those listing edges, like when it's dry.
So the other thing that I was going to do here is use some gesso that's been slightly loosened rather than watercolor, because the watercolor, really, your tail does not need to be in my project.
Oh, that's funny. We can always use some DNA in there, you know, a hair here and there.
Oh yeah. You have animals,
whether
DNA,
you want it or not, you're going to get some in.
You're going to get some in.
So I've left this kind of thicker so that I can get some bigger
spots. Oh yeah, I can really see those now. So Glennis had a mop-up paper for some of her over ink, and she took the mop-up and did the black marker around it like we were doing. I can see gold on there too. That looks really cool, Glennis. Turn the mop, take the mop up and draw around the different shapes and get another cool background. So, and that's the thing about these is you may start sitting down, whether with pad of paper or your art journal or whatever, and just do something to have some brainless time. But then what you're doing is also practicing techniques for backgrounds. And you might just do something mindless and then go, oh, I really like what that did. There's a new technique I can use for backgrounds that I'm doing, whether for an art journal or tags or a regular journal page or cards, even scrapbooks, if you're a scrapbooker. Sarah, did you do this one? And Christy, did you do this one? Yeah, we might have to do a jump start where we do the soap bubbles in a bunch of different ways, because there's a lot of different things that you can do with them. Watching chat to see if you guys, any of the others of you did this one that you want to send, or what your thoughts are about it. And we're at 2 o'clock, 2:06. Wow. Time flies when we hang out with you guys. Feel like you just sit down and get started creating. Was too wet to dry. Totally okay. Well, when you get done, you could post pictures in the group of the fun experiments that we did. Let's see. I wonder if I can get a better picture of that while it's wet. Let's try. I put a lot of color in that too. I really saturated it. Wanted to make sure that you could see it, but sometimes I like putting a whole lot less color, and then when it dries, it's not all filled in, but you see the veining of the bubbles, but between them isn't all filled in. Glennis liked the second exercise better than the first. Why is that, Glennis? Because it's just more random drawing around the shapes. Sarah's too wet to draw on. Yeah, I get it. I get it. And sometimes your dryer is too noisy to do while you're in the middle of all that stuff. Okay, guys, we are still in the second week of the February challenge. So don't forget, if you haven't started it yet, you have plenty of time. If you go to HPP Facebook group, Happy Paper People, there is a featured post at the top of the page that explains the challenge to you, and it's making index cards, and it will give you week 1 and week 2's prompts. You only have to make 3 index cards. You get 5 prompts. You can choose any 3 of them. And then, so work on getting your first and second week done and posted in the group. And Monday at noon, Monday Jumpstart, we will announce the prompts for week 3. I cannot believe that February, we're already looking at week 3.
I know.
We just had New Year's. And I swear, the older I get, the faster it goes. Just crazy. I'm just making sure I didn't miss any chat there. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks, DM and Jen, for being with me.
That was fun.
Different ways that we're all doing it. It was fun. It was fun. It was relaxing. It was no brainer. You needed a little.
Yeah, I like no brainer. Low brainer.
Low brainer. Low brainer, no brainer. Yeah, now I've got all these distress inks sitting in front of me. Now I want to just put those out and go do something with those as well. I want to try all the different things that are sitting in front of me. And the inks. If you guys have these, I really was playing with them this week. I am so impressed with the color and the vibrancy of the color. They are really highly pigmented. I really like those watercolor pencils. I hadn't used them a whole lot before, but I did a bunch this week, and I will be more for sure. All right, guys, have the rest of a great Saturday, and we will see you all. Somebody check in on Margie. We got to make sure she's okay. Just asleep. That's okay. We will see you all on Monday Jumpstart. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Take care.